Rivals in the ring, brothers in humanity. The story of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali goes far beyond their epic battles in the boxing ring. It's a story of fierce competition, unrelenting ambition, and an unexpected act of kindness that forever tied two legends together.
I heard I was going to be on the TV with this attorney, so I had to dress like a lawyer today.
Oh, yeah? Well, I thought it was a sports thing. I would come relaxing. I think that...
These two heavyweights are remembered for their unforgettable fights. But beneath the surface lies a moment of profound humanity that changed everything. In this video, we'll uncover how Joe Frazier, the man who gave Muhammad Ali his first professional loss, became an unlikely savior when Ali's career and livelihood were on the brink of collapse. From Ali's bold defiance against the Vietnam War draft to the devastating consequences that followed, and Frazier's quiet heroism, we'll take you through the untold story of how a champion's compassion saved his rival. This is not just about boxing, it's about respect, humanity, and the enduring power of doing the right thing. Muhammad Ali was not just a boxer, he was a cultural icon, a symbol of defiance, and a voice for justice. His career reached a pivotal moment in 1966 when Ali made a bold decision that would define him as much as his performances in the ring. He refused to be drafted into the Vietnam War. His reasoning was both personal and political, summed up in his now famous quote, "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong." Ali's refusal wasn't just about avoiding war, it was a profound statement against the racial and social injustices he saw in America. He questioned why he should fight abroad for a country that denied him and his people basic rights at home. Ali's declaration struck a chord with many, particularly during the height of the civil rights movement, but it also sparked intense backlash. The country was deeply divided over the Vietnam War, and Ali's stance placed him in direct opposition to the establishment. The repercussions of his decision were swift and severe. In 1967, Ali was convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, and fined $10,000. Though he avoided jail time through a lengthy appeals process, the damage to his boxing career was immediate. The heavyweight champion of the world, at the peak of his powers, was stripped of his title and his license to box. This wasn't just a professional blow, it was a financial catastrophe. For 3 long years, Ali was barred from competing, leaving him without his primary source of income. The man who once filled arenas and earned big paydays now found himself struggling to make ends meet. His family felt the strain, and the pressure of providing for them weighed heavily on Ali. Ali went from being a global superstar to a figure of controversy, revered by some and reviled by others. He was no longer the champion in the ring, but a champion of a different kind, one fighting for his beliefs. Yet convictions don't pay the bills, and Ali's finances dwindled. His bold stand came at an extraordinary cost, and he was forced to rely on the support of those around him to survive. To understand the magnitude of Ali's struggle, it's essential to place it within the context of 1960s America. This was a period of intense social and political upheaval. The civil rights movement was in full swing, with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. fighting for racial equality and justice. At the same time, the Vietnam War was escalating, and the country was deeply polarized over its purpose and morality. Ali's refusal to fight in Vietnam resonated deeply with those who opposed the war and the systemic racism in America. He became a symbol of resistance, a man willing to sacrifice his career, his freedom, and his reputation for his principles. However, this also made him a target. Many saw his actions as unpatriotic and disrespectful to the soldiers who were fighting and dying overseas. Despite everything, Ali never wavered in his beliefs. He continued to speak out against the war and for civil rights, using his platform to amplify the voices of those fighting for justice. His defiance in the face of overwhelming adversity made him a hero to many, particularly within the African American community and the growing anti-war movement. It was in this period of struggle that Joe Frazier entered the picture. Frazier was rising in the boxing world, undefeated and already on a trajectory to become champion. But he didn't see Ali as a threat or a rival during this time. He saw him as a man in need. Ali's struggles were a defining moment, but they were also the catalyst for one of the greatest acts of compassion in sports history, setting the stage for a rivalry and a bond that would transcend the ring. This chapter of Ali's life wasn't just about the sacrifices he made, it was about the strength he found in adversity and the people who quietly stepped in to help him endure. Joe Frazier wasn't just a great boxer, he was a man of immense character whose compassion and humility shone through even during one of the fiercest rivalries in sports history. Known as Smokin' Joe, Frazier was an unstoppable force in the boxing world. Undefeated and rising through the ranks, he was the man everyone believed could challenge Muhammad Ali's dominance. Frazier's style was relentless, a powerful, aggressive fighter with an iron will. By the time Ali was banned from boxing in 1967, Frazier was already making waves. As Ali fought his battles outside the ring, Frazier was climbing his way to the top, eventually claiming the heavyweight title in Ali's absence. While the public eagerly anticipated their inevitable clash, they couldn't have imagined the depth of the connection that would grow between these two legends. Despite the public framing them as rivals, Joe Frazier didn't view Ali as an enemy during this time. He saw a man, a fellow athlete and human being, struggling under the weight of extraordinary circumstances. Ali's financial struggles were no secret. Stripped of his ability to fight, the man who once dominated the ring now found himself unable to support his family. Frazier, knowing how much Ali's livelihood depended on boxing, quietly stepped in to help. Without fanfare or public acknowledgement, Frazier gave Ali money to keep him afloat during these dark years. The gesture was extraordinary, not just because of the amount he gave, but because of what it represented. Frazier could have easily ignored Ali's plight. After all, helping him only increased the chances of Ali returning to the ring and challenging Frazier's claim to the title. But Joe didn't let pride or fear dictate his actions. Frazier's support didn't stop there. He used his growing influence as a champion to advocate for Ali's reinstatement. In interviews, he publicly called for boxing commissions to allow Ali to fight again, famously saying, "If he can fight, let the man fight." This wasn't just a soundbite. It was a public endorsement from the reigning champion of the world, one that carried significant weight. Frazier risked his reputation and his career to help a man who, at that point, could have been considered his future rival. Joe Frazier's act of kindness was monumental for several reasons. First, it allowed Ali to survive during a time when his options were few. The financial assistance Frazier provided helped Ali keep his family afloat and gave him the breathing room to continue his legal battles against the draft evasion charges. Second, Frazier's public support added legitimacy to the growing calls for Ali's reinstatement. As one of the most respected figures in boxing, Frazier's endorsement carried weight with fans, the media, and the boxing establishment. By speaking up, Frazier helped change the narrative surrounding Ali, emphasizing that his contributions to the sport and his right to fight shouldn't be dismissed because of his political beliefs. Finally, Frazier's actions paved the way for one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. Without Frazier's financial and public support, Ali's return to the ring might have been delayed or even derailed entirely. Frazier's willingness to help his rival ensured that boxing fans would eventually get to see the two men face off in the ring, a moment that would define both their careers. Joe Frazier's generosity wasn't just an act of kindness, it was a testament to his character. In a world where rivalries are often fueled by animosity, Frazier showed that compassion and respect can coexist with competition. His actions were rooted in humanity, demonstrating that even in the pursuit of greatness, there's room to lift others up. At the time, Frazier's kindness didn't receive the recognition it deserved. Many people didn't even know about the money he gave to Ali, as Frazier never sought to publicize it. For Frazier, helping Ali wasn't about earning praise or building his legacy. It was simply the right thing to do. Thanks to Frazier's support, Ali was able to weather the storm of his suspension. He emerged from those difficult years not just as a fighter, but as a symbol of resilience and conviction. When Ali was finally reinstated in 1970, the stage was set for one of the most iconic rivalries in sports history. Muhammad Ali's return to boxing in 1970 was a momentous event. After a 3-year suspension for refusing the Vietnam War draft, Ali was finally reinstated, and the boxing world eagerly awaited his comeback. However, his return also set the stage for a clash with Joe Frazier, who had claimed the heavyweight title during Ali's absence. While Ali sought to regain his title, Frazier was determined to prove he was the true champion. Despite the kindness Frazier had shown during Ali's exile, the reunion between the two fighters was anything but cordial. Ali unleashed a barrage of insults aimed at Frazier, calling him ugly and dismissing his championship as illegitimate. Ali's taunts went beyond simple trash talk. His words carried deep racial undertones, including comparing Frazier to a gorilla. These insults hurt Frazier deeply, especially coming from a fellow black man, and they drove a wedge between the two fighters. The media played a significant role in amplifying the tension. Ali was portrayed as the charismatic provocateur, while Frazier was painted as a stoic and hard-working champion. Fans quickly took sides, with many drawn to Ali's flamboyant persona, and others admiring Frazier's humility and determination. The anticipation for their matchup reached a fever pitch. Dubbed the Fight of the Century, the bout was set for March 8, 1971, at Madison Square Garden. It was a clash between two undefeated heavyweights, and the stakes were higher than ever. Only one would leave as the undisputed champion. When the fight began, Frazier proved why he was the reigning champion. His relentless pressure, powerful left hook, and ability to cut off Ali's movement gave him the upper hand. Ali tried to rely on his speed and footwork, but Frazier's aggressive style was too much to overcome. The defining moment came in the 15th round, when Frazier landed a devastating left hook, knocking Ali to the canvas. Though Ali got back to his feet, the knockdown was a decisive blow. After 15 grueling rounds, Frazier won by unanimous decision, cementing his legacy and silencing critics who questioned his legitimacy as champion. Frazier's victory was a moment of triumph and validation, but it also marked the beginning of an even more bitter rivalry. Ali's insults had left lasting scars, and while Frazier proved his greatness in the ring, their personal animosity would continue to define their relationship in the years to come. By the time Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier prepared for their third and final encounter, their rivalry had transformed from professional competition into deep personal animosity. What began as a clash between two titans of boxing had escalated into an outright war of words and emotions. The lead-up to the 1975 Thrilla in Manila was marked by increasing hostility. Ali, fresh off his victory over George Foreman in the iconic Rumble in the Jungle, had regained the heavyweight title and solidified his place as a legend. However, Frazier was far from done. Still stinging from his loss in their 1974 rematch, Frazier was determined to reclaim his championship and prove that he was Ali's equal. Unfortunately, Ali's pre-fight antics pushed their rivalry into even darker territory. Continuing his strategy of psychological warfare, Ali unleashed a torrent of verbal attacks on Frazier, including the infamous gorilla comments. Ali would hold up a rubber gorilla during interviews, mockingly referring to Frazier in dehumanizing terms. These insults went beyond the usual banter, coming from one black man to another. They carried painful racial undertones that deeply wounded Frazier. For Frazier, who had grown up in poverty and experienced the harsh realities of racism, Ali's taunts were a betrayal. Frazier had once supported Ali during his exile, even lobbying for his reinstatement. But Ali's relentless mockery turned their rivalry into a deeply personal vendetta. The pain of these insults fueled Frazier's determination to defeat Ali, not just to reclaim his title, but to restore his dignity. The stakes for the Thrilla in Manila couldn't have been higher. Ali was now the reigning champion, basking in the glory of his recent triumphs, while Frazier was fighting for redemption. Both men were motivated by more than just the championship belt. They wanted to settle the score once and for all. The fight wasn't just about boxing, it was a battle for pride, respect, and legacy. For Ali, it was a chance to cement his dominance. For Frazier, it was an opportunity to reclaim his status and silence the man who had caused him so much pain. As the world watched, the stage was set for one of the most brutal and unforgettable battles in the history of the sport. The Thrilla in Manila, on October 1st, 1975, stands as one of the most brutal and iconic battles in the history of boxing. The fight between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier was more than a championship bout. It was the culmination of years of rivalry, animosity, and determination. From the opening bell, it was clear this wasn't just a fight. It was a war. For 15 grueling rounds, Ali and Frazier punished each other with relentless ferocity. Ali began strong, using his superior speed and footwork to dominate the early rounds, landing sharp jabs and powerful combinations. However, Frazier, known for his unyielding pressure, began to close the gap. As the fight progressed, Frazier unleashed his devastating left hooks, targeting Ali's body and head with brutal precision. Both fighters pushed themselves to the brink of collapse. Ali, known for his resilience, absorbed tremendous punishment, his ribs bruised and his stamina dwindling. Frazier, refusing to back down, endured punishing blows even as his eyes began to swell shut. By the later rounds, Frazier was nearly blind, relying on instinct and heart to keep fighting. The climax came in the 14th round. Ali, exhausted and battered, later admitted that he felt close to death during the fight. Between rounds, he told his corner to cut his gloves, signaling that he was ready to quit. But as fate would have it, Frazier's trainer, Eddie Futch, threw in the towel before the 15th round could begin, knowing his fighter couldn't continue. Futch's decision may have saved Frazier's life, but it handed Ali the victory. Ali collapsed in exhaustion after the fight, too weak to celebrate. Later, he would famously describe the battle, saying, "It was the closest thing to dying that I know." Despite the insults and bitterness leading up to the fight, Ali's respect for Frazier was evident. Reflecting on Frazier's indomitable spirit, Ali said, "If God ever calls me to a holy war, I want Joe Frazier by my side." The rivalry between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier is remembered as one of the greatest in sports history, but it was also deeply complex. While their battles in the ring captivated the world, their relationship outside of it was marked by both compassion and conflict. Frazier's initial support for Ali during his exile demonstrated his quiet heroism and sense of humanity. Frazier had lobbied for Ali's reinstatement and provided him financial help during his time of need. However, Ali's relentless verbal attacks before their fights created a rift that would take years to heal. Ali's mockery, particularly the racial undertones of his insults, left lasting scars on Frazier, who felt betrayed by someone he had once considered a friend. Despite this bitterness, their rivalry shaped both men's legacies. Ali's charisma and skill, paired with Frazier's relentless power and determination, created a trilogy of fights that remain unmatched in boxing history. Their clashes were not just about titles. They were battles of will, heart, and pride. In time, Ali acknowledged Frazier's greatness, recognizing the role he played in pushing him to his limits. Though their relationship was fraught with tension, moments of mutual respect shone through. Frazier, too, understood the significance of their rivalry, even if the personal wounds never fully healed. Beyond the ring, their story is a testament to the complexity of human relationships. Frazier's quiet act of kindness during Ali's exile reminds us of the power of compassion, even in the face of rivalry. Ali's eventual acknowledgement of Frazier's greatness underscores the respect that can be forged through shared struggle.